Hey y'all, before we get rolling, if you run a nonprofit, this is for you. Comfy Stone just released a free 90-day donor retention checklist to help you keep more donors through authentic storytelling. Get your copy at comfystone.com/checklist or click the link in our show notes. Now let's dive into this week's episode.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Missions by You. I'm Brenna with Maya as our co-host, and we're in the studio with Kenneth Hoffman. Kenneth is the executive director of the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience, a New Orleans museum focused on the history and experiences of Southern Jews. Welcome to Missions by You, Kenneth.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about what is the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience and what are its goals?
Absolutely. So the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience, sometimes we call it MSJE, opened in New Orleans in May of 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic. So we're just coming up on our 5th birthday, so we're very excited. We've had about 50,000 people have come through the museum so far to learn about a population in the South that maybe a lot of people don't necessarily know about, which is Jews in the South. Jews have lived in the South since colonial times and have been a part of Southern history and Southern culture in all kinds of ways. They've been influenced by that culture, and they've influenced the culture as well. So that's what the museum's about. We like to say 13 states, 300 years, and countless fried matzo balls.
Fried is key.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And the mission, the goal is to engage people in conversation, teach them something about a population that maybe they didn't know so much about, in an effort to sort of, help people gain a new appreciation for identity, for acceptance. The South has a lot more diversity than people might realize. A lot of the history of the South is the history of race, black and white, and that's understandable, that's true. But there are Chinese Americans in the South, and Lebanese Americans, and Greek Americans, and there are Jewish Americans in the South, and there's all kinds of, in New Orleans, the Vietnamese community, the Isleños community, and all of these different communities have their own history and culture that has seeped into the wider culture in some ways. And then the wider culture has seeped into their cultures. And so it's really a museum about identity and about community and about people.
You mentioned 13 states. That's the 13 states that you guys kind of cover as far as history-wise?
Yes. Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and Kentucky. So now, is that the South? There are people who come to the museum and say, well, how come Maryland, you don't cover Maryland? Or how come you don't cover Missouri? Or why is Oklahoma in there? That's not the South. Or, people have all kinds, and I tell them, start your own museum. No, that's not right. It is subjective in certain ways as to what's considered the South. But those are the 13 states that we primarily cover.
I think even though some people might say it's not the South, I think that selection of states makes for a really interesting demographic of the difference between, Oklahoma, Jewish people, and the history of Jewish people in Louisiana, right? Like you get a little bit of those different areas also.
Absolutely. We're the Museum of the Southern Jewish Experience, but it's really experiences. Because I have an aunt and uncle who live in El Paso, Texas, which is like the farthest west in our region, of our states. Their experience is very different from someone who grew up in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside of DC, or Miami, Florida, or New Orleans. And so you're right. Even within our distinct story that we're telling, there are many multiple stories within that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lesson too, that everyone has multiple identities. You know, they're where they're from, what they believe in, how they act, how they, you know, who they're related to. Those sorts of things make up who we are and should be celebrated.
Mm-hmm. Even in you listing all of the perhaps nationalities that are combined with the Southern experience, like Lebanese Southerners or Greek Southerners, the Jewish identity itself is so multiplicitous. So you can be a Greek Jewish Southerner, you know?
Exactly. You
Right.
could be a Greek, Jewish, gay, tall, you know, slow, fast. I mean, you know, you could,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, it's all of those different identities, and what we're focusing on, obviously, is you know, being Jewish in the South, and one of the reasons that can cause some cognitive dissonance in people. It's like there are Jews in the South, is that, you know, if you ask 10 people to say what is your picture of immigration to the United States, you know, Ellis Island, that kind of a story comes up a lot for a good reason. Millions and millions of people, you know, came to this country through Ellis Island. And some Southern Jewish families came through Ellis Island, but others came through Galveston or New Orleans or Savannah or Charleston or Mobile, and made their lives here, you know, back, like I said, in colonial times or, you know, in the early years of the United States, up until the present.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of immigration, you guys have a new exhibit that has recently opened in the museum.
We do have a new exhibit. So we have a core exhibit that when you come, you can, you know, kind of go through these 300 years. But we have a special exhibit gallery. And right now we are presenting an exhibit called, what's it called? It's called Holocaust Survivors in the South, the New American Social Club of New Orleans. And so in our core exhibit, you'll see stories about 19th century peddlers, you know, going from farm to farm peddling, and you'll see stories about, you know, the turn of the 20th century, and trying to establish congregations and build synagogues and those sort of things. But there is a newer group of immigrants who came to New Orleans and other cities across the country after World War II. They survived the Holocaust. Sometimes they were the only member of their family who survived the Holocaust. They came here and made new lives for themselves in New Orleans and found each other and created sort of a new family by bonding together. And so we tell the story of how they got here. Many spent years in displaced persons camps, DP camps over in Europe. There were legal obstacles to coming here, but those were overcome. They show up here. The Jewish community of New Orleans met them on the docks. You know, they had apartments ready for them. They had clothing ready for them. They had to teach many of them English, most of them. They had to teach them English. They had to teach them how to shop in a grocery store here in the United States, you know, all sorts of things, and help them, you know, create a new life here. But the Holocaust survivors themselves did most of the work. They did the work of finding jobs, learning English, starting businesses themselves. And then in 1961, not to get all history on you with dates, but in 1961, a movie came out. It actually came out in 1960, but in 1961, it came to New Orleans, and the movie was Exodus. And it was all about the founding of the State of Israel in 1948. And it had Paul Newman in it. I mean, it was a big, big old thing. And George Lincoln Rockwell, this will not be on the test, don't worry about it. But George Lincoln Rockwell was the head of the American Nazi Party. I don't know if You knew we had one of those back then. So, and he and some of his followers in Virginia got into a big bus. They called it the hate bus. They had written hate bus on it. And they announced they were going to come down to New Orleans to protest the movie because they were against the state of Israel. They were against Jewish people. And so when the Holocaust survivors in New Orleans found out about this, they kind of freaking out. You know, it's like they had 15 years earlier, they had survived the Holocaust. So they met and they decided that they would meet this group of neo-Nazis at the theater the night that the movie played, and they brought baseball bats with them, and they were gonna, you know, smack heads. The police were there. The police kept everyone separate. They actually arrested George Lincoln Rockwell and his followers for inciting, you know, trying to incite public disturbance. And through that kind of intense emotional experience, the Holocaust survivors, who had been, you know, friendly and having, you know, celebration, birthday dinners together and things like that, they actually formed the New American Social Club, like an official thing. They had little membership cards, they had dues that they paid, they had meetings, and it just sort of helped them to make themselves more visible as a group. By that time, they had felt more comfortable being in the city. You know, they had established themselves. And they went on to do things like organize Holocaust memorials and programs to memorialize the Holocaust. And so they would organize programs at the Jewish Community Center. If you've been to Waldenberg Park down by the Mississippi River, there is a Holocaust memorial, a very beautiful sculpture. They were instrumental in raising the money for that and making sure that the city put that up. So that's the story that we tell. We have a lot of photographs of these folks. We have some of the video that they took of their parties, and we have interviews that people can listen to, and some wonderful artifacts. We have a big Exodus poster that would have been at the movie theater at the time, from the time period, and it's got Paul Newman on it. I mean, we're the only museum right now in New Orleans who has Paul Newman on display. So that alone could get you there.
I was going to say, that alone sold.
Yeah.
Come on
You're
down.
sold,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, and this exhibit is going to be on display throughout the rest of this year until the end of December. So there's plenty of time for people to come and check it out. And we hope they do.
And what was that curatorial process like? What was the curation process like of gathering these artifacts and finding the visual representations for this history?
Sure, that's a great question, and that's where you start when you're doing an exhibit. You know, you might have a great idea. I want to do an exhibit about, but I don't have anything to show. It's not going to be much of an exhibit. We were very lucky. We started with a project that had already been done. A local lawyer named John Menzer, several decades ago, started interviewing Holocaust survivors here, and he's a photographer as well. So he took wonderful pictures, and he created a sort of a panel exhibit, you know, like big framed pictures of these Holocaust survivors. And some people in New Orleans may be familiar with these pictures because sometimes they're on display at the World War II Museum every once in a while, that sort of thing. So we started with that, you know, some of the stories that he collected and the photographs. And we thought, well, we want to expand on that. And so we first did a lot of research about, you know, what happened after the Holocaust, how did people get to the United States, why did they come to New Orleans, a lot of newspaper research and those sorts of things. And then we started contacting family members of these Holocaust survivors. There's only one still living in New Orleans right now. Her name is Ann Levy. She's a wonderful woman. And she spent a lot of time talking to students about her experience, which is just a wonderful service to perform. But we talked to the family members, the children, and sometimes the grandchildren of these survivors, and we said, we're doing this exhibit. Do you have anything that would help to explain their experiences over the years, either from when they first came over, or or in their later years when many of them started going into schools and making presentations? And so we collected all sorts of interesting things from these family members. Some of them have been donated to the museum. Some of them are on loan because the families want them back, and which is totally understandable. So, so some of the things in this exhibit may never be seen again by the public, which is another reason to come and see the exhibit. And of course, we worked with a graphic designer to make sure that it looked good on the wall, and we had to write a script, which is the story, basically the words on the wall. That's one of the hardest things to do, because you want to use a lot of words because there's a great story to tell, but you don't want to use a lot of words because people, when they come to a museum, they don't want to read, spend all their time reading. They can do that at home. They want to experience it and
be immersed in the visuals and the sounds.
So that's one of the hardest things, is to take a huge story and condense it into something that's digestible for people of all ages. We are bringing children through this exhibit to get that experience as well. So that's all part of the process of creating an exhibit, and it's a lot of fun. And we have a wonderful curator. His name is Michael Jacobs, and he worked very hard on it. I worked with him. We worked with this fellow, John Menzer, to put it all together, and I think we did a good job.
Real quick, guys, did you know it can cost up to 7 times more to find a new donor than to keep one you already have? That's why at Comfy Stone, we created a free 90-day donor retention checklist. It's simple, step-by-step guide that shows you exactly what to do after someone donates. From how to thank them to how to tell stories that keep them engaged and giving all year long. You can grab your free copy at comfystone.com/checklist or click the link in our show notes. All right, let's get back to the show. Kudos to museums across the board, because I am always in awe of how you guys take a story and make it so just like digestible and visually appealing, and all the work that goes into the curation process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're curating something right now. You're curating a podcast, and you have a staff, and they've decided what the story is going to be and how we're going to set it up. And you want to make it engaging to an audience, and so there are certain guidelines and best practices that you use. And I used to work at the World War II Museum for many years, and I learned a lot working there, how to make a successful museum that now we don't get 1 million people a year coming through like they do. But
not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. But we are just 2 blocks away from the World War II Museum. So a lot of people do come to both.
Why is this story particularly important to tell?
Why is this story particularly important to tell? Very good question. Very good question. When we started describing the museum, I talked about identity. I talked about diversity. I talked about America. That we're a country of immigrants. We are a diverse place, a place where there are a lot of different identities and a lot of different histories, and we all, in theory. And in order to form a more perfect union, we want to all be able to work together to make it work. In this day and age, we're challenged. We're challenged by different ideas, by different thoughts, by some cruelty out there and some anger out there, and it's directed oftentimes at minorities and at immigrants. overall, it's not, we don't think it's good for the country as a whole. We're not a political organization in any way, and we have people who come through the museum who have all kinds of beliefs about everything. But we do recognize that we have a responsibility to the public to present history and present it in a way that makes them think. We're not telling people how to think. We're giving them a story, and we're letting them understand maybe something they didn't understand about the past. And then from that, they can they can make their own decisions about what they believe. Now, we do have all sorts of wonderful public programs connected to this exhibit that will be running throughout the rest of the year. We have people coming in to give lectures. We're going to have panel discussions with different immigrant groups, that sort of thing. So it's going to give people a chance to engage in those conversations. That was sort of a long answer to a short question.
No, I think it was a great answer, and I love that you highlight that, immigrants, that we need each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that while the story speaks about a very specific group of immigrants, I think it is universal to everyone in that sense.
Universal is a great word, and when I talk about the museum, I talk about how we're talking about a very specific, less than 2% of the overall population. So why should anyone care? Well, there are some of these universal lessons in the Southern Jewish experience,
Mm-hmm.
like there is in the Japanese American experience and the African American experience and the everything experience. There are lessons, and it's sort of a little bit of a walk in that someone else's shoes kind of a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And we're giving people a chance to do that. And we're one of the only places, we're the only museum like our museum in the country. So we're very proud of that. And I think that we're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm. A part of this program, I imagine, is encouraging school groups to visit this exhibition. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
We love it when school groups come. I mean, we love to know ahead of time. And of course, we always do. Teachers know how to set up a field trip, but we have a very active field trip program. And we have students that come in from really, I don't know, I'd have to ask my public programs manager, but, really like third, grade, much younger than that. There's not much you can really teach them, but all the way through high school. And we have different programs for different age groups. They mostly come to see the main exhibits, but we have a special field trip for this special Holocaust Survivors exhibit. And we're looking forward. We've already had groups come through, and we're looking forward to welcoming more. And right now, we have free field trips because we have a grant from First Horizon Bank to provide free field trips for students in Louisiana and Mississippi. So we
Amazing.
Shout out to
I was
First
going to say, shout
Horizon
out
Bank.
to
Absolutely,
Horizon.
absolutely.
The only thing better than a field trip is a free field trip.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so exciting.
How are you connecting? Like, do schools need to know about that program that you're offering right now? Should they just reach out?
I hope they know. Well, I mean, they know about it if they've been reading our emails
Okay.
and our newsletters, and we go to field trip fairs, that kind of thing, and we table at places where teachers go to get information about what's available across the city, and they can pick up our lesson plans, as well as information about how to do a field trip, and it's on our website as well. So teachers out there,
Yeah.
Actually,
you're-
more like this than
Not
that.
like this.
But
Yeah,
you could
more
do
like
that.
this.
You could do
Either one.
You could do that. That's fine. That's fine.
I love that you just mentioned field trip expos, or I forgot the
Mhm.
word you just said. I didn't know that was a
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, Wait, teachers just go and get to.
Usually at the beginning of a school year, there'll be different organizations that will, sort of have an expo, and let teachers come to like a one-stop shop.
Yeah, for teachers to see all that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Of course, nowadays with the internet, you really can just do it from your couch, but it's nice to be able to be in a place.
To be in a place and
Sure.
see all the options.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's real cool.
Absolutely.
Definitely not as exciting as scrolling on your phone.
Right.
Seeing all of the field trip possibilities. I was a field trip hound as a child. I
You
loved to be on a field trip.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How can people support the MSJE?
Well, the number one thing is we want people to come through our door. And we're, like I said, we're located 2 blocks from the World War II Museum. So that's like tourist central. We are on the streetcar line. Right after it goes around Harmony Circle, it comes right past the museum and then turns up Carondelet. We're open 6 days a week. We're open every day from 10 to 5, except for Tuesdays. We're closed on Tuesdays. That's the day when we clean up. We have to change light bulbs and things. People can volunteer at the museum. We need all kinds of people who are interested in museums or interested in the story. They can become a member, just like you would be a member of your public radio station. You can become a member of the museum and get all kinds of goodies from us, or just make a donation. And you can also donate things, like artifacts, because we are a collecting museum. We continue to collect things. Sometimes we say no thank you. It's like we don't show up with 17 boxes of your grandfather's whatever.
That's exactly what I was going to next Tuesday I was going to pull
up. There are certain things that, old newspapers that are crumbling and all that. It's like, that's all digitized. We don't really need that. But there are lots of things that we do like to collect. And so that's another way people can support the museum. And mostly we want people to feel like this is their museum, whether they're Jewish or not, or Southern or not. We're a very friendly place. There's a Yiddish word, Hamish, and Hamish means homey and like a lot of hospitality and modest and friendly. So we're a Hamish museum. We welcome everyone, and we like people. We love it when people see themselves in the museum. They'll go through on a daily basis. People like, I saw my grandfather. Or if they didn't actually see a picture of a family member, there was something about the community where their mother grew up or something like that. And that's exciting. When you go to the Louvre, people love it, of course, but they're not saying, oh, there was something from my grandmother in there. I mean, they don't say that.
Yeah.
But our museum, our museum is part of the larger community. We have a lot of folks who come in and say, I didn't know I was Jewish. And I spit in the tube and I sent it in to, one of those companies, and it came back and I'm 14% Jewish. And I never knew that. And now I want to know more about those roots. And we can help them because we have a research center, and we can help them with their genealogy. And so it's, being part of the community is what is the best part about being at the museum.
The genealogy center is really interesting. Would you mind saying more about that?
Sure. Well, last year we opened up the Chapman Family Research Center, and it's a space on our 3rd floor where we can keep some of our archival materials on site. And we have a reading room and a research library. And we won't do people's genealogy because that's a rabbit hole that you could never come out of. But we can teach people how to do their own genealogy and how to use Ancestry, or there's something called Jewish Gen, which is like a Jewish genealogy site, online site. And so we can help them do that. Or if they're looking for information about their community, we might have information about that in our collection, and we can help them do that. So, and we also, in the center, that's where we digitize everything. When something comes through, if we can digitize it, then it can be available worldwide, once we get it online. So those are some of the efforts that we're doing. And we do all of this with 8 people. We have a very small staff. We're small but mighty. That's what we like to call ourselves. And I got a prop. This is our tagline: Shalom, make yourself at home. And that's the idea is that, shalom is Hebrew for welcome and for peace. And make yourself at home is that Southern hospitality that we're all about. So that's what we want people to know.
Makes sense. I love that tagline.
Oh, and I've got something for y'all, just to let y'all know. I got y'all some mugs of your own, but look, your own matzo ball.
Oh,
A little squishy matzo ball. So there's one for you and one for you. So there you go.
These are some of the countless fried matzo balls you were talking about.
Not fried rubbery, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And so we also have a museum store that, of course, you exit through the gift shop.
So sweet. I love that. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Before we wrap up our episode, we love to end on a fun question.
Okay.
So our question for you is, what's your favorite part of being Southern?
My favorite part of being Southern, I'm gonna bring it even smaller. My favorite part of being in New Orleans is the food. I'm sorry, but it is the food. I'm not sorry. It is the food. It is the food. And, for Jews who are very observant, who are Orthodox Jews, there are dietary restrictions on what you can eat. And a lot of what you can't eat is all the good stuff. And I am not an Orthodox Jew. I'm what's known as a Reform Jew. So I don't abide by all of the dietary restrictions. And so I can eat anything, and I do. So that's the answer to my question.
Brenna, do you want to go?
I mean, he stole the words out of
I
my
know.
mouth. I know. Also, being New Orleanian, it is even Southern food in general, things that don't even necessarily grow in New Orleans proper that have a really special place in my heart at special times of year. Pecans, like the citrus harvests that are down in Belchase. I mean, it's like
strawberries. Yeah.
Strawberries.
It's strawberry
Ponchatoula.
festival time. Yeah.
Yeah. The snowballs. I mean, it's like at every time of the year, there's something special to eat. And that rings true. That just makes me feel like I live a charmed life because of it,
I'm going to give you a little hint. Next time you get a snowball, half peach, half plum.
Ooh.
Just try it. You'll thank me.
Okay.
Now, what is your
Well, I didn't know we were going to
thing?
also learn about snowball.
I know.
That is yeah, I'll be doing that this weekend. I was tied for food and then just our general hospitality, that you can be walking down the street and people will greet you. When I'm in other cities and like you're walking down the street, tunnel vision, and it's like you can say hi. Like, I promise I don't bite.
Right.
When the cashier at Rouse's calls me baby.
Yeah, you're home.
That's the best.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, where can we find MSJE?
We are the museum is at 818 Howard Avenue, so right by Harmony Circle, which used to be Lee Circle. And they can go also to anyone can go to msje.org. And that's our website, and you can find out all about the museum there as well.
Lovely. Are you guys on socials at all?
Oh, of course. We have a lot of fun on Facebook and Instagram, and we've kind of fallen off of Twitter X because nobody much goes there anymore. And TikTok. And almost all of our public programs are recorded and put on our YouTube channel. So we've got probably over 100 programs on YouTube that people can watch.
Wonderful. I love how you said we have a lot of fun on, and then you name the socials. Not a lot of people are having fun on socials anymore, so we should go check you out.
Absolutely. We have a great team that does one. We have every department is one, but whatever. And we do have fun.
Love that. Well, Kenneth, thank you so much. We had such a good time.
Great
This has been
conversation.
great.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I hope everyone comes to the museum.
Thanks for listening to Missions Bayou, powered by Comfy Stone. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast wherever you listen. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment, letting us know your thoughts and who you'd like to hear from next. We'll see y'all next time.